This is the beginning of podcast number 11 on chapters 8 and 9. Chapter 8 is on establishing an environment for learning, and chapter 9 is about maintaining student behavior. Teaching is a very complex activity, and teachers need to design an environment where learning can take place. We need to have a warm, supportive environment that encourages student performance in learning, but yet at the same time maintain student behavior so that all students in the class can learn. If there's one disruptive student, then the teacher has a tendency to take a lot of time with that particular student. So it's important to maintain a positive environment for everyone. Some of the key concepts about maintaining a positive learning environment are that the learning environment is the condition that the teacher creates in a classroom or in a gymnasium that supports or hinders learning by the students. What we mean by hinders learning by the students is that sometimes teachers do things or organize the gymnasium in a way that makes it so that students can misbehave. And we don't really want to see that happen. The learning environment consists of managerial and instructional components, and both of them are necessary if physical education is to reach its full potential. You need both. The managerial component, or the organization of the class and how you establish rules and protocols and so on, establishes the structures that allow the class to function effortlessly. The instructional component refers to subject matter activities that allow students to learn the physical education content. Development of a managerial component is necessary, but it's not sufficient as a condition for student learning. You still need to have the instructional component and the managerial component and interacting so that you can teach the students. This also means that you need to keep the children at a high success rate for as long as possible in your class. That will keep their attention and make them feel like they have some self-confidence. As you've probably learned by now in our class and as you've been teaching the students, as part of the managerial component, reflective teachers develop protocols including rules and routines that ensure the smooth existence in the gymnasium and or on the playground. These protocols and rules and routines consist of start and stop signals and boundaries and how you distribute equipment and so on. Class rules are general expectations for behavior that cover a wide variety of situations. Routines are procedures for accomplishing specific duties within a class. So rules are things like respect each other's privacy and space. Routines and procedures are things like, as I said before, handing out equipment or meeting the students or the children in a particular place when they come into the gymnasium. Rules and routines are most effective when they reflect a positive environment while teaching children to be responsible for their own behavior. That's a very important principle of keeping behavior and maintaining behavior in physical education, is trying to get the children to be more responsible for their own behavior. We want them to get to the point where they are learning to make their own decisions. Development of protocols is an integral and critical part of maintaining a safe environment. In other words, not being able to run into each other and have some type of organization to our movements. As part of the instructional component, reflective teachers develop content purposely and progressively, communicate effectively, provide focused feedback, and accommodate individual differences. You can manage without teaching, but you can't teach without managing. It's also important to try to teach the children about personal and social responsibility. Content development includes the use of tasks, cues, or verbal cues or teaching cues, and challenges to guide students in their learning of different ways to move. The KISS principle, KISS standing for Keep It Simple Stupid, means that you need to keep things simple, using one cue at a time, clear demonstrations, and pinpointing that are all aspects of communication. Pinpointing is a teaching strategy to invite a student to demonstrate a skill they've done well. In other words, pinpointing certain students in the class to use as examples of either good behavior or good performance. Congruent feedback, which is feedback that is about what you specifically said you were going to teach that particular day, provides focused information to children about the skill they are practicing. Individual differences can be accommodated through the use of teaching by invitation and intra-task variation. Teaching by invitation means that the teacher chooses a task for the students to practice that fits their abilities. Intra-task variation means that you change the task by using extensions up or extensions down to make it easier or harder, or the task to make it easier or harder. A major responsibility of every reflective teacher is to provide students with a physically and psychologically safe learning environment. They need to know that everything in the class or the gym is going to be the same every day that they come in. In other words, they're going to expect you to behave the same and provide the same type of safe learning environment or structure. This slide has an image on it that we call a word cloud. It represents the multitude of learning environment aspects that need to be developed and maintained. Usually the word cloud, in the word cloud, the largest words within the word cloud are the ones that are the most important in what you're trying to study. It is important in physical education to provide a safe or structured environment because kids learn best when the gym is a predictable place to learn. One thing that's important is that one of the standards for NASP, or our national content standards, are that students should develop increasing responsibility for their own learning, behavior, and attitudes. So that's what we're trying to do here, is to shift the responsibility for behavior and learning onto the students. The teacher's attitudes and beliefs play a vital role in trying to get kids to learn, it both positively and negatively. Many times teachers do use negative reinforcement or negative feedback to try to get students to learn. Sometimes that's the only thing that students will respond to. But when at all possible, we want to try to be as positive as we can be instead of reactionary. Some other factors to consider in establishing a positive learning environment are change, challenge, and choice. And choice goes back to the idea of teaching by invitation, giving students the choice of equipment that they use to practice the task, or give them the choice of distance that they practice away from their partner, and so on. You want to use positive interactions, and people are not for hurting, they are for helping. Never use sarcasm, because the problem with using sarcasm is that young children in particularly take sarcasm very literally. So your sarcastic comment, even though it's not meant to be hurtful, does become hurtful to young children. An enthusiastic teacher motivates kids to be moving and do different types of movements. So it's important to be enthusiastic and not sarcastic. You want to try to differentiate learning as much as you can by modifying the tasks or the equipment for your different students in your classes. Remember that there are no stupid questions from students. Many times if you don't give the directions clearly, you have to go back and try to get them to understand better. Physical is for everyone. You need to walk your talk, in other words, be a role model for physical activity, and you need to decorate as much as you can in the gymnasium. Make sure the bulletin boards are bright and colorful and easy to see and easy to read. We can see here an example in the picture of a physical education bulletin board that's very bright. Although you can't read the circles there, it's bright and it's easy to see. It's also important to mention here that there are 3 handouts in the folder on Blackboard that will help you with this particular chapter and with your quiz number 4. One of them is called Selected Appropriate and Inappropriate Physical Education Practices, Positive Learning Environment, and Class Management. It's actually on page 104 in your textbook, but I've also written it out in a handout for you on Blackboard. The learning environment consists of conditions created in the classroom that supports or hinders learning by students. It consists of two essential components: the managerial component, which is establish the structures that allow the classroom to function effortlessly, and the instructional component, the subject matter activities that allow students to learn the content. In the next podcast, we will talk specifically about those two areas or components. This is the end of podcast number 11.